What if Naganadel was in Gen 1 OU? Now this guy is the reason I'm allowing the dragon types to have Dragon Claw in the first place. Because beforehand, I was thinking, okay, Generation Jumble. Dragon types having dragon moves would be cool, since that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses Dragonite has. But then I thought, okay, we're going to Naganadel because he could be a good rep for both Poison and Dragon. He literally can't evolve without Dragon Pulse, so we should give him that. And then I was like, yeah, no, that's way too unfair to other Dragon types. They need to get Dragon Stab too. And to be honest, I think just another problem the Dragon type has is that there's literally only one Dragon type that has a severely bad Ice weakness. So I think it's mostly going to be fine. In fact, I think with Goodra being in the format, I think having Dragon Stab is actually very needed. This Goodra might end up being really, really good in Generation 1. The Naganadel, on the other hand, they're kind of weird. Like, just look at these stats. These stats look like it's a freaking Paradox Pokemon. But they're definitely good. Like, 127 special, and then 121 speed. That's like a little bit lower than I think Alakazam has base 130 special attack. Maybe I'm wrong, but 135 no. But that was close. And 121 does make it exactly one speed point faster than Alakazam. Which I would say is probably the bare minimum on how fast Naganadel should be. Because if it was slower than Alakazam, I might even say it's bad. But it's not. It is... It's like Haxorus yesterday. It's good, but you need to be a good player to really like get around its weaknesses. I will say though, Haxorus has more of a high because it can, sit up sword stance and do just insane damage. But on the other hand, Naganadel, I think it's easier to use. That fast speed and just naturally hitting really hard on the special side, I'm gonna say that is like probably a little bit better, but it's hard to tell because Haxorus already had a pretty flawed type, and Naganadel is so much worse it's not even funny. This actually might be the worst defensive typing you could possibly have in Gen 1 OU. A Poison Dragon type, weak to Psychic, weak to Earthquake, weak to Blizzard and Ice Beam. What could possibly be worse than that? The only thing I could think of is just Grass Dragon. But even then, that has a quad, like, resistance to electric. So, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. And thank goodness we're giving this thing Dragon Pulse. Otherwise, it would actually kind of suffer with moves as well. But, since it has Dragon Pulse, that means we can add it to its list of moves. You also have Fire Blast, Flamethrower, the base 20, or no, the base 10 Leech Life, if you'd like to use that. For Season 2, he'll also get access to Poison Jab for Generation Jumble. So at the very least, he'll be cooking a little bit more there. Although at base 73 attack, I'm not sure how hard it's gonna hit. But it's something. Thunderbolt, which is obviously pretty good. And then down here, I think the only usable move is just Hyperbeam. I don't think there's anything else right here other than Sky Attack. So that means Fire Blast probably. Oh no, it's H. Fire Blast and Hyperbeam. And its Hyperbeam doesn't even hit that hard. So it's a weird moveset. Because these are all good moves, but outside of like Fire Blast and Dragon Pulse, they don't really hit as hard as you want them to. And even Fire Blast doesn't hit, it only hits I think a little bit harder than Dragon Pulse, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it's the other way around. Dragon Pulse hits a little bit harder. So you would rather go for Dragon Pulse. However, let's not forget, this is the generation where Fire Blast has a 30% chance to burn. And I think that's going to be Naganadel's main niche. There's no Will-O-Wisp in Gen 1, but there is Will-O-Wisp at home, which is Naganadel being faster than basically everything, and hoping you get a burn. If you think it doesn't sound too great, I don't know. I honestly don't know if that would actually be good or not. Maybe, despite its bad typing, that could be good and help it succeed. Or maybe not. I would probably use this more than Haxorus though, if I'm being honest. And being a fast burner does have some really good merits. Like for example, Tauros, while it technically has the ability to beat you 1v1, good chance it might switch out because it's terrified of getting burned. Same thing for Rydon. Rydon's also very strong, but if it's burned, it's basically useless. Not to mention with that very good speed stat, that gives you a very, very good crit rate. And that right there could very much be the difference between a lot of your bad matchups being good. In fact, your crit rate is the reason why the vast majority of their matchups are in fact could go either ways. Which, for Pokemon that's so bad defensively, I think that's not bad. And if anything, I'd say that's a fair compromise. Wouldn't you? Now let's get into the replays. We have more than usual today, weirdly enough. Starting off with the boy himself, Tauros. And Fire Blast, like, if it hits hard, you're super scared. But also with Tauros, it can crit, or the Blizzard could freeze, so you could be as good as dead. But even like for this replay here, I would argue that the Naganadel did its job. Because that Tauros is burnt, and I'm pretty sure with burning, it ignores the, what's it called? Attack drop when you get a crit. So maybe, like, that might not seem too good, but I'd still say it is. But, like, worst case scenario, Naganadel is a big threat for Tauros. If it doesn't kill Tauros itself, and you saw there, like, okay, yeah, Dragon Pulse does do a little bit more than Fire Blast. But, like, even that Dragon Pulse itself, 42 is... that's, like, not bad at all. That is, like, actually a lot better than I thought it would have been. So the Naganadel can crit, or it can just burn with Fire Blast. No matter what, the Tauros isn't safe. Snorlax, on the other hand, in some ways it's a little bit more safe, because it's much bulkier. But at the same time, it still kind of fears a burn. But let's also not forget that you don't always get the burn. So I would say that this is probably a bad matchup? Or it could go either way still? I don't know. Snorlax is in between there. But most Pokemon, it's just safe to put Snorlax and could go either way. Because that's just how Snorlax is. The same cannot be said about Chansey. Hyperbeam does really pathetic damage. So I'm gonna say this is just unwinnable. The Chansey can just always wall you, and there's not much you can do about it. It's a shame you can't use your, like, Super Glue, like, ability that Naganadel has in real life. Or not real life, like, in the actual real life Sun and Moon. Wait, no, and talking about the anime, or, like, in more. I don't know why I'm being so stupid right now. I'm just mumbling words. I'm so sorry. This is a professional YouTube channel. And also, like, Alakazam, even though it's faster, Hyperbeam isn't even to a KO. So I think a crit Alakazam would barely survive. Someone can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But even if, like, I'm not wrong, it just does not seem worth it in the slightest. I don't think having a single point in speed changes the crit rate that much. But would Alakazam and Naganadel, or Naganadel, I don't know how to pronounce this thing, it's weird. Either way, would they literally have the same crit rate? Or maybe one of them is just like a 0.1 less? I don't know. But either way, it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Cloyster can do a lot of damage to you with Blizzard. Even though you have a great crit rate, it's also worth knowing that if you have even a little bit of chip damage, the Cloyster will definitely kill you with Blizzard. So this is could go either way. Technically in your favor, but also there's like crits with Blizzard or Freeze. So it's definitely not completely in your favor. And with Sweep, like the Executor just kind of dies. But also, good chance the Executor would just go for Psychic. And if something's already asleep, I'm gonna say NAGANADEL can do a decent job holding its own against Executor. Fire Blast does a lot of damage, as you saw there. And I wonder if the NAGANADEL could have won without the Psychic special drop. It did 49 or 48.9%. So I think it's possible. I'm gonna say it's probably a damage range. Between like a 2 like a 3 hit KO. But who knows? I would probably know if I bothered making more replays, but I don't think that was really necessary. I think Gengar is kind of the same thing, but I would say Gengar probably has a better matchup overall. Psychic does a lot of damage, but a crit can also do a lot of damage to Gengar in return. So I don't think Gengar would go for Hypnosis, because even though Dragon Pulse is a 3 hit KO, because of how good NAGANADEL's crit rate is, I don't think you can really afford to just flat out miss a turn with Hypnosis. And also, it's worth saying, not all Gengars use Psychic. There's also Nightshade and Thunderbolt. And with those ones, NAGANADEL just absolutely claps. Like, low difficulty. And then Jolteon's weird. It's, like, faster than you. It can paralyze you. Thunderbolt and Double Kick you resist. But you're weak to Pin Missile. As you saw there, did nothing. So I don't know how to rank this one. I guess you can put it in good matchup, since NAGANADEL is always gonna win. But if it's paralyzing you with Thunder Wave, then NAGANADEL is kind of good as dead. But also, let's be real, Jolteon is usually a replacement for Zapdos, so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, since if NAGANADEL takes out Jolteon, that means your opponent probably doesn't have an answer for Zapdos. Outside of Rydon, but you know. Shh, we don't talk about that. Now for Jinx. It can put you to sleep, it can freeze you, it can use Psychic, but none of that matters if you're just good and get a lucky Fire Blast. I could potentially see NAGANADEL actually being a lead, if I'm being honest with you. It's like, what are some of the most famous leads? Starmie, Jinx, Alakazam, maybe, but I'm not even sure. NAGANADEL seems like a good anti-lead, since Thunderbolt, as you'll see later, does a lot of damage to Starmie. And Jinx, honestly, I'm not sure if you risk the Wealthy Kiss or not. Nor am I sure if you risk the Blizzard or Psychic. It would be a very fun game of chicken. Because, like, putting him on the sleep is very valuable, but the Jinx does have the tools to potentially take out the NAGANADEL very quickly. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Maybe a Revenge Killer, but I think NAGANADEL would mainly be used as an anti-lead. But you can disagree with me on that if you want. I love to hear what you guys think in the comments. And with Rydon, it hurts really hard, and an burned Earthquake brings you to like 4%. But a critical Dragon Pulse also does the same thing. So this is that could go either way. But I would say that the Rydon has a lot more to lose than the NAGANADEL. Because if NAGANADEL crits, and even without a crit, a Dragon Pulse, as you can imagine, will do a lot of damage, the Rydon can be very easily revenge killed. If not, just get burned and become completely useless. So, that's actually not bad for NAGANADEL, if I'm being honest with you. I had 2 replays for Rydon, but one of them is not working for some reason. So now we have Swellbro. Thunderbolt does a lot of damage. And while Swellbro can go for Amnesia, and it might even get a free turn or 2, that doesn't matter too much because NAGANADEL's crit rate is absolutely great. So, no matter what, it will probably get an opening to go for that critical hit. Not to mention, for once being a Dragon type isn't actually that bad, because you resisting it means that you can survive at least one more Surf from Max Special, which is good actually. That helps you a lot with fishing for crits, which you're going to get a lot of opportunities to get. So good for NAGANADEL. I'm proud of you. Also, I don't think I've said it yet, but I'm like 90% sure NAGANADEL is my favorite Ultra Beast. Probably should have said it earlier. And Starmie's weird. You're initially faster, but Starmie has Blizzard, Psychic, Thunder Wave. But at the same time, the Ganadel with Thunderbolt is very, very dangerous. So Starmie could try to go for the kill. It can also go for just whatever it wants. But there's always the risk of you getting just completely destroyed by the critical Thunderbolt. So it could go either way. And last but not least, we have Zapdos. And resisting electric is extremely annoying for Zapdos. So it has to rely on Drill Peck. There's also a chance that you can burn the Zapdos too. And if you burn the Zapdos, even if you get KO'd, that just means that Chansey can actually just do its job at baiting Zapdos. But it's not an easy fight no matter what. Then the Ganadel might win, or Zapdos. It just depends on who gets luckier, and who gets crits. So that is the tier list. It's gonna look very weird. Like, really, really weird. Like this... Actually, I'll keep Snorlax and could go either way. Because if it gets a burn, that's really bad. And you're not always using Amnesia Wizard Wax anyways. So for Pokemon with just an absolutely abysmal defensive type, I'm gonna say that this is pretty good. Like for Pokemon that is weak to, let's see here, Psychic, Ice, Ground, it is doing a decent job holding up and being able to overcome its weaknesses. If you really look in the server and gaming replays, I was talking about how I just have no idea if this thing would even be good. But now that I've talked out with you guys and I rewatched the replays, I think the Ganadel would be good. And I do think that it would honestly be used as an anti-lead. Because Jinx, Starmie, Executor, and kinda Alakazam all have something to fear. Especially if the Ganadel crits, which is very likely to do, you're in danger. So that means that for many leads, they have to choose to either risk it, or they're forced to switch out. And if you're forcing a Starmie or Jinx to switch out, get turn 1, that could put a lot of momentum in your favor. Especially since, like, outside of Chansey exactly, what exactly wants to switch in on a Ganadel? Like, maybe Rydon if you have Starmie out, because, you know, it's going for Thunderbolt. But then you have a critical Dragon Pulse or, like, Fire Blast to worry about. Same thing with Jinx. If you're switching out Jinx or, like, Executor, like, what wants to switch into that Fire Blast? Like, still probably Chansey, but there's other Pokemon in the game, too. Chansey can't just, like, do it all. Not to mention, while it didn't show it, the Ganadel can crit with Hyper Beam, which could potentially do a lot of damage to Chansey. What do you think? Do you think the Ganadel would be really good in Gen 1? Or do you think its typing would hold it back immensely? Same with its lack of coverage. Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.